How's it going, guys? Just want to have a quick discussion on the Remington 870, the shotgun pattern as a whole. We got two examples here in front of us. We have the Remington 870, like the deer special purpose on the left with the 20-inch barrel, with the slug sights, and with that stupid rail on the top that I'm going to take off because I don't deer hunt with it. And then next to it, we have a just standard Remington 870 police type version with Wingmaster style parts. What I wanted to go over today is simply what you can do with the Remington 870 platform as a whole, and how it's not expensive, and the ways that you can go about building or designing or upgrading a classy shotgun to fit your needs. Now, these vary anywhere between, the tactical polymer stocks that you used to see back in the 90s and early 2000s in cruisers, all the way up to, the older vintage models, the Wingmasters that are blued steel, to like the early 80s police versions that were Parkerized, kind of like what you see here, that sort of style anyway. Well, in the past, I've done some videos about how to build a Remington 870 defensive shotgun on a budget. Primarily, this is going to be referencing defensive use of a shotgun, some of the pros and cons of the 870 altogether, and some of the things I've experienced just gunsmithing on 870s over the years. I was a certified armorer in the U.S. military. When I got out, it's been a long time. I've basically been tuning and working on shotguns, all types, for about the past 15 years, especially woodworking. And I can tell you that without a doubt, two of the most simple, easiest style shotguns to work on would be the Remington 870 and the Mossberg 590 and 500 series. Now, I'm not a huge semi-automatic shotgun fan, although I do appreciate the vintage models. That's just my style, like the Remington Model 11, the Browning A5, etc. And those tend to lend themselves to very good reliability. They got a track record behind them. But for today's purposes, we're just going to talk about the slide action shotgun of the Remington 870 version this time around. So if you just want to know straight off the bat, Remington 870 shotguns are my personal favorite for a few reasons, and I'll give you a few here. Number one, they're made out of steel. I understand that increases weight, and just to me, they feel more robust. They feel like a little bit more utilitarian compared to a Mossberg or other models. They have available to them, you can buy and purchase police trigger packs, the trigger guard, which is aluminum, or a steel variant, and that really kind of bolsters the strength of the shotgun and just adds that vintage feel and appeal. Now, by no means am I saying I'm an expert at this, but that's far from it. I'm just kind of like, at this point, a home hobbyist. But I do want you to know that you can get away with building a Remington 870 shotgun for rather inexpensive. Heck, I mean, some of these you could build, you can buy just a regular express model and then upgrade the parts as you go along. Some of the common parts that are upgraded on these that I'd recommend for a person who's newly getting into Remington 870s would be the extractor, ejector. You can do, instead of having the cast or MIM extractor, you can get the milled or the steel, the tool steel extractor. Those used to come standard on the police model. You can upgrade the springs inside. You can get like a police trigger pack and purchase the police strengthened springs. That just gives you a little bit more, in my opinion, longevity. It doesn't necessarily add to the functionality of the shotgun at present, but it does give you some longevity with the spring usage and the tension of the springs over time. Most of the time, when I obtain a pre-owned or used shotgun, or someone brings one into the shop, and we work on those, typically the magazine spring is well beyond its lifespan. So It's pretty simple to replace those. If you were purchasing a used or pre-owned Remington 870, I would do definitely change out the magazine spring. Wood stocks can be had. I mean, they're getting rather expensive now for whatever reason, but the birch ones, like the ones on the left, are, can be had for a fair price on the known websites and, other sites. I've noticed that some of the shortcomings of the Remington 870 is definitely the length of pull for a defensive shotgun. And the length of pull, when we talk about that, we're discussing the distance between the trigger finger and the buttstock end, or the recoil pad. So what I do is I naturally will put it, reduce it by about 2 inches, because for some reason Remington makes them, I think they're like over 14 inches long. I could be wrong. And when we reduce the length that way, they can be a lot more easier to shoulder and more universal for other family members to use in a defensive encounter. It just makes it just a better overall, tighter, more maneuverable package that way. There's nothing wrong with a bead sight. Matter of fact, bead-sighted shotguns go back farther than my ancestors. I mean, people have been using them for years. You have to learn how to use a bead properly if you're going to use it. There is a technique to use. You can, go on the Google and figure that information out. Most of you guys watching this probably definitely know how to do that. I personally prefer the slug style sights and the defensive style sights on the shotgun. That's where you have the rear sight on the barrel, kind of like the two examples here, and then the bladed front sight on the front. Just for my aging eyes, I feel it to be more comfortable to use those. These particular models here are pretty much like my general purpose. Remington 870s, I've built probably about 40 or 50 of them over the course of my years of working on them, and universally they all hold up pretty well. I've noticed a lot of common problems is folks forget to put in the steel stock support that goes in between the rear receiver and the stock, and then we'll get stock cracking. So that's something to look for if you get one on the used market. Make sure you have that steel insert in there, that recoil, that piece of steel there that goes in between the receiver and the wood stock. Now, if you have polymer stocks, you can omit that. That's not an issue. When you do shorten the length of pull on a shotgun, you got to re-profile the recoil pad. So what I do is I just go ahead and either I'll use the original one like I did there on the right, on your right, the darker stocks, the rosewood, or I'll take a decelerator by Packmeyer or a limb saver, and then I'll run that on a belt sander, trace it out to whatever the new stock length is, and then, try to modify it the best I can so it doesn't have too much hangover and it matches up pretty well on the stock. So that's definitely a must-have in my opinion for the Remington 870 shotguns, unless you just buy, if you like synthetic stocks or rubber or polymer, the Hogue short length of pull, the real short one's an excellent option if you don't want to go the wood route and with the more traditional look. I just figured, just to get some discussion going between folks, if leave it in the comments what's your opinion on the Remington 870. Truly an excellent shotgun. It's kind of like, in my opinion, the Ford F-150 of the gun world. You can modify it anyway. It's still classy looking, but it has the modification option just like any other gun, like an AR-15 or anything. You can literally take it from a box of parts and design it the way you want it from the ground up. And if anyone needs help with that or have any questions, just leave it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer those for you. As far as shotgunning as a whole, I'm a huge proponent of the defensive shotgun. Some people might think that's fuddery, or they might think it's silly, but that's my opinion. I stand behind it. There's a certain reason why I like to use these. I mean, they're proven. A shotgun is definitely an excellent universal survival tool. You can't go wrong with a 12 gauge pump slide action shotgun. You just can't do it. There's, in my opinion, no other weapons that are more versatile. Now an AR-15 is great. They're excellent. We have a few of those as well. And just in my opinion, for the most devastating handheld firearm that can be wielded by a civilian other than the 50 BMG, the 12 gauge shotgun reigns supreme. And in my opinion, the best all-around 12 gauge slide action shotgun is the Remington 870. So if you guys have any questions, want to know more about the shotgun, please feel free to reach out. I do want to show that I did put a Wingmaster bolt in this one. So that's kind of nice with the polished silver. Is just something classy about that. They don't make them like they used to. Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. If you're watching this, expect more shotgun content to come up. That's going to be some of the primary focus of the channel, that and vintage 1911s. You guys have a good one. Take care.